Hi there. Welcome to Infinite Stories. This is the podcast where we sit down and interview everyday people just like you and me. This is your host, Mitchell Vine, and boy, do we have an incredible story for you. Let's jump into this week's interview.
Well, Autumn, why don't you give yourself a little introduction, a little behind the scenes of who you are, what you do, and maybe why we'd be having a conversation on a podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm living out in Kansas City, Missouri right now. I'm actually from Denver, Colorado originally. I have an awesome husband and a son who's 3 now, just turned 3. And I am a co-founder of Red Cord Publishing, so working on that business with my brother-in-law. And we really help Christians write, publish, and market their books. So we want to remove all the obstacles that comes along with self-publishing. So we really help them, whether that's coaching them through the writing process or even writing the book for them. We just really want to make it seamless for people to be able to share the message that God really has on their heart and to be able to get it out there in the world.
I love that. All right. So that's what we're going to work our way up to in the story now. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of the story. Why
Okay.
don't you kind of paint the picture of what life looked like for you as a kiddo, Autumn?
Yeah. I went to a small Christian school my whole life, so pretty much, well, from preschool to senior in high school. And I did a lot of sports, so I always played soccer and then played volleyball later, and I loved sports. I pretty much had good friends. I would say I had a really good childhood. Of course, there's some trouble and strife in there as well, but for the most part, I had a really good childhood.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. One of the deeper questions I like to ask from the get-go is, do you remember a time where you first understood or encountered sin for the first time?
I don't know about sin specifically. I'm sure there was definitely times. But I do remember praying the prayer to get saved in like second grade. So I think maybe around age 7. And I remember thinking I should feel so different after this prayer, you know?
Hmm.
So I'm not exactly sure what I was learning at that point or what made me pray the prayer at that moment. But I remember I should feel so different, and then I didn't, and so I was kind of disappointed. I was like, what the heck? I thought I was saved.
Mm-hmm.
So, but really I ended up just praying that prayer over and over again until finally I was like in high school, I was okay, I'm sure I'm saved. I'm just gonna say it one more time and then I'm gonna trust that I'm saved.
This is the last time, I promise.
Yes.
That's awesome. I like that. I like that. Well, kind of looking through those middle school years, a lot of times there are typical lies that we start to believe either about ourselves or maybe about our surroundings, people around us. Were there any lies that you found yourself kind of wrestling through in those years?
I would say probably more so about other people. I started believing some lies. I had a great time actually in junior high, a great group of friends, had a lot of friends, and the school itself was smaller, so you did kind of know a lot of people. And at the same time, I did put a lot of stock into my relationships, I guess. That was like my saving grace. I didn't necessarily love being at home, and so I loved hanging out with my friends and sports. And so like a lot of my friends were in sports as well. And so just had a lot of fun with that, but at the same time that came with starting to develop a lot of disappointments in people, kind of starting to believe some of those lies that maybe this friendship, if it gets too hard or it's too much conflict, I can just walk away from it and
Mm.
just quit the relationship in a sense. I learned later on in life, of course, that also stems from like your earlier formation years, of course, of how did you feel safe? Did you feel loved? You know, basically the essentials that every human needs. And if
Mhm.
for some reason you don't feel those things, I've learned from this psychologist that apparently at some point I didn't feel both of those things. And so I knew why I didn't feel safe necessarily. My father was an alcoholic until I was 16.
Mm.
He's completely stopped and changed, which is amazing.
Mm.
But, and he wasn't physically abusive, but maybe a little bit emotionally abusive in that sense. And so I did feel a little unsafe there, but feeling unloved shocked me. But when she explained all these symptoms of this, feeling unloved and unsafe, it was like, oh, that is me. And basically it just gives you this, I was definitely believing lies that it was just me and the Lord, just me and the
Mm.
Lord. I don't need other people. I can walk away from other people. And
Mm.
that really developed at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that definitely would shape the way that you view the world around you. And people could easily write it off as, oh, that's such a small thing. Don't worry about it. And it's just like, well, actually, in the grand scheme of things and how God created us to be, it plays a pretty big role. So that's really good that God was showing you that.
Yes.
In those high school years, kind of wiggling a little bit farther up, were there any big monumental moments that really shaped your character at all in the high school years?
Yeah, I would say a couple, especially losing some good friends, more so just they moved to different schools or some of the relationships. For that reason, I mentioned before, just kind of, oh, this relationship's getting too hard, just kind of cut them off. So I lost some good friends, went through a little bit of a depression during that time,
Mm.
because I had also had a really good best friend. She started seeing this guy who I could see was not good for her. And of course, you can't tell a teenage girl that. They're not going to hear it.
Mm.
And um, so went through a little bit of loneliness through that time as well, and just feeling like stuck in high school. So I love freedom. One of my values is freedom. And in high school, I pretty much went through a lot of friendships because either left or just kind of broke off. And I also just felt stuck, really wanted to be done, really wanted to be done with high school. And
Mm.
really also didn't want to really live in my parents' home either anymore. And so overall, I was just waiting to get out.
I hear that. That's many people, that's for sure.
Yes. Thankfully, somehow though, the Lord did, because going to this Christian school, the Lord really did lay a foundation. Um, I couldn't have pinpointed it at that point for sure. Like, I wouldn't have told you I had a good relationship with the Lord or really learned a lot about how to,
Mm.
because I really didn't. I did learn, how to, a little bit of scripture, and we would do Bible classes and some stuff. So I knew the stories, but that was
Mm.
kind of how it ended. But the Lord still managed to lay a foundation, which was really cool.
Hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then leaving the high school era, what happened? How did the story kind of shift around and change? Did you pursue any extra schooling, any extra relationships outside of high school? What happened?
Yeah, so after high school, I was so thankful to get out. I did not want to go. Honestly, I wanted to act. I had started acting in high school, and I wanted to move to LA and New York and become an actor. But my parents were like, no, you have to go to school. And so in my mind, I didn't say it out loud. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school for like 2 years, and then I'll do that. And then I'll move out to LA or New York. And I was like, well, I'm going to do something that I love to do. So I went to college for acting, theater, film, and television. And actually, after the 2 years, I was like, okay, I'll finish my degree. I didn't want to move out anymore, to out to the LA or New York, but I still did want to really leave my parents' home. But I stayed there because I went to a commuter college and it was a lot cheaper. So I just did that. But I ended up in this smaller theater department, which was a lot of fun. Like the people were really great, and we would just all be in classes together and shows together, and I never went home because I was just out at school or theater or out with my friends, and I had a lot of fun. And the Lord, going into college, I was definitely nervous about going to a public school because it was my first time doing that. And somehow I'd start writing down Bible verses of like, the Lord is my protector, he's my shield, just like all these around to help me with fear and anxiety around going. And I would write them down and I'd read them out on the bus to school. At the first couple years I took bus. And I don't know where that came from other than the Lord, because I wasn't taught to do that, or, he just somehow established that in me. But then in college, going through meeting all the people and the friends that I did, I definitely made the choice to live in the secular world, started drinking a lot more, and started partying, and met a boy, and definitely remember the moment I made a conscious choice to turn from the Lord, because I believed in and knew that it was a good thing to wait for marriage to have any sort of sexual relationship, and a covenant marriage relationship is where that's for. That's what I believed. And yet I made the choice to turn from God's ways, and knew the moment and felt the shame and the guilt that came with all of that. And so it also created, well, now I can't go to the Lord with this because I want to live this life and I'm really ashamed. And so I can't even talk to the Lord. So that made it worse. And I ended up staying in this relationship that I knew I wasn't going to marry him, and knew that I was more so in it because of like the loneliness that I had felt at that point. And even though I had great friends and stuff, I wasn't going to the Lord for those things. Like, I wasn't taught that, but at the same time, I wasn't myself pursuing that. And so I was going towards other people and towards this relationship, which definitely kept me stuck in it through the rest of college and even a year outside of college. At the end of college, I was very aimless. I didn't want to act anymore. I didn't want to, so I didn't know what to do with my life. And the only thing was, this relationship just kind of kept me in it. And so I realized I wanted to travel, but I didn't have a lot of money. So I saved up for a year to try to travel. And I was like, how can I work and travel? I had to figure out a way to do that. And was totally living my own life at this point as well. So not really asking the Lord or seeking direction in any sort of way. But I figured out I wanted to teach English. So after that year after college, and I was still living in my parents' house and so ready to get out. And so I moved out of the country, went to Spain. I got certified to teach English, and then backpacked a little bit more around Europe after that. That was really fun. Happened to meet a girl who was an American girl nannying for an American military family in Germany. And there was another family that needed a nanny. So I ended up doing that. I was planning on going to Asia right after getting certified, but this opportunity came up. So I was like, all right, I'll go to Germany and I'll be a nanny. And that was an awesome time. For sure.
Fantastic. Well, what happened after that? What, just landed in Germany, and I don't think you're in Germany anymore. So kind of bridge the gap for us. What happened in between the lines?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in Germany, I was still gonna go to Asia after the fact. And so the relationship that I felt stuck in, I still wasn't able to cut it off myself, even though I had tried in college, and we broke up. But the next day, it was like he's still right there in the same classes, same environment. So we got back together, and then it wasn't until I moved to Germany he broke it off because he knew I was still going to go to Asia afterwards. And after that, I was so thankful that I, of course, did more in the relationship a little bit, but I felt so free finally. And I knew the Lord was there, like pulling me back. But I was still definitely in my own ways. And while I knew he was calling me back, living in Germany, I still fell into the same sin and probably would have stayed stuck in there as well had the Lord not moved me back out. So I stayed there for about 9 months and I was really trying to get a work visa, try to find a job there, and it just didn't work out. So I had to come back to the States, did that for a couple months, and back to my parents, and started looking for jobs in Asia, and found an amazing Christian English school in Taiwan. And so I was like, well, I have to apply to that one, and got the job. So I ended up in Taiwan for 3 years. And that's where the Lord just totally wrecked me. It totally changed my life, brought me back to Him, because now I was in this environment where I was teaching the Bible. So I had to read the Bible for the first time for myself, like the whole way through. And even though I didn't understand, 75% of it, I still read the Bible. And the boss of this school had a great church that had a great English speaking community of other English teachers that were all out there as well. And I learned so much about the Lord from there, just so much that I had never heard before, never had heard that he's, real, living and active today. He's with us all the time and his power is real and still working today. And so I learned a lot of that through that church. And then also learned about some of the schools that were out here. I'd never heard of, like the International House of Prayer out in Kansas City, or there's Bethel in California. And I learned a lot about those schools out there, actually, and just some of their teachings were very similar. And so I started watching the prayer room online, which was just like basically 24/7 worship and prayer streamed on YouTube or, their website at the time. So I would just watch that a lot and get a lot of teachings from that. So after about 3 years in Taiwan, I was feeling the call to come back to the same culture, getting a little homesick, and ask the Lord, okay, what's next? And very clearly heard Kansas City. And so I was like, okay, Kansas City. I was kind of hoping California, but it's okay. What's in Kansas City? But now that I'm here, I know exactly why. Like, obviously it was the Lord's plan. I was supposed to be in that prayer room. And I did the ministry school for about 1.5 years. That's where I really learned how to read the Bible for myself, how to understand it, how to not just take the word of some preacher or some teacher, and just actually find truth in the Bible, use the Bible to interpret the Bible. And my relationship with the Lord grew tremendously. I learned how to have a praying relationship with the Lord and all of that. So, and then of course from there I met my husband and now have a son and I have a business. And so I can see why the Lord chose Kansas City.
He knew what he was doing.
He
That's what it
did.
sounds
He
like.
did. Yes.
Oh man. I love how you started the story with a lot of just the childlike faith of God, am I saved now? God, am I saved now? And it kind of transitioning into more of the season of Kansas City and just watching how God really pulled and stretched you in all the different ways. And it really just like that idea of like answering that question finally of like, yes, you are saved. Like this is what being saved looks like. And this is how it changes everything. And I've always been saddened when I hear people share stories of, yeah, no, I prayed a prayer this one time and life's just been great. And I'm always thinking to myself, no, that's just not how it works. And if that's how it's worked for you, me and God have some words because that's not how it's worked for me. but it's been very interesting to hear just the ups and downs of what it's looked like and the adventure that you've gotten to experience as well. You talked a little bit about the business that you're running, and then also getting to be a wife and a parent now.
Mm.
How does the gospel shape all these different things in your life for you?
Mm. Now it's changed everything.
Mm,
Um, yeah, honestly, even going through the years, just learning about the Lord, and He really, especially in the time at the house of prayer, just gave me such a deep root with Him and just a deep relationship with Him. So now it's the way I look at everything. So with the way I look at having a marriage, having my son, parenting, my main mission and purpose in life really is to love the Lord and let Him love me. And then, I love other people from the overflow. And
mm,
so, like, if there's one message I can give to people, it's that you are living your purpose if you are loving the Lord, right? Like, just
mm,
you can settle down, all the stress of like, what do I need to do with my life? Who am I? How do I do this? It's just like, just love the Lord. And then you'll be able to do all the rest from the overflow of that. And of course, there are a lot of things that can come in between that, can try to hinder that love or try to hinder you feeling that, and um, even now, I don't know who's going to be listening to this, but with the International House of Prayer, there's been a big scandal, a big, unfortunately found that there was a system of prophetic, spiritual, even some sexual abuse within the system. And
mm,
that is really unfortunate. And from my time there, which was over a decade in many different forms, I was even on staff, I did not see any of that. I did not experience any of that. And I'm really sorry for the people that did, but I know that the Lord can use it. He did use that time, that organization, to really ground me in Him. And even now, He can use all of this for His
mm,
glory, for His good. He is a God of justice, a God of mercy, right? And so,
mm,
even through all of that, He can bring people back. He can bring people through, no matter what they've gone through in their life, to a place where even in the house of God, if things are shaken, right? Because He says everything that can be shaken will be shaken, but we must get to a place where it's just Him and He, and our relationship with Him is not shaken.
mm. Absolutely true. Absolutely. As a person who works on books a lot, I'm sure you have a love for books. And my favorite character in most stories is the mentor figure, or the wise old man. Typically, is what he's called. And so I'm curious, were there any mentors or guides in your story that have kind of helped you to where you are today?
Yeah, I would say probably not until moving to Taiwan did I really find some of those in my life. Um, just going to school, and I'm sure there's some great, amazing teachers where I went to school, but I was definitely probably a little bit bratty and just didn't love the rules and the system, so it was like
Mm,
didn't feel free there.
mm,
So didn't find people that were I really looked up to or respected that were older until later. And I would say my boss from Taiwan, he really took me under his wing, brought me into that church. That was awesome. And then moving here in the house of prayer, a lot of the teachers and leaders were great spiritual figures. And in even going through this season, the hard time with the house of prayer, learning that um, God can still use people, speak through people, broken people, right? We're all
mm-hmm,
we're all broken people. And so even having broken mentors, they still do help you and bring some value, can bring some value to your life.
Mm,
Um, One main figure, though, I would say throughout is after a couple years of being in Kansas City, I found another small church that I went to outside of IHOP at the House of Prayer
mm,
and met the pastor and his wife, and they were great people. They were just, and it was such a small church that they really, really took me under their wing, took some others of us under their wing. And
mm.
then they, even though that church plant closed, we stayed friends. And then that pastor is he kind of became a business mentor as well, and then now he is my brother-in-law and my business partner. So he's been a lot of roles, but he has been a very constant godly figure and godly mentor in my life.
Mm, I
Yeah.
love that. I love the chain of events of all the different
Yeah.
hats that he put on, and then he became my brother-in-law. Oh,
Yeah. It was
fantastic.
pretty funny because honestly, I didn't know he had a brother for a long time. They just lived in two different cities. They're actually half brothers, but
Mm.
and they're 10 years apart. And so, yeah, it was honestly just one day my husband came into my life. I was like, "Oh, you have a brother. Okay."
And I already know him.
Yeah, it felt like that. It felt like that.
That's incredible. So kind of on the subject of mentors a little bit more, do you view yourself as a mentor to others?
I would like to. I'd hope to be. I would say I guess I have always tried to be a sort of life coach before that was even a term with my friends, and I think that's part of the reason why I got so frustrated when they just would not take my advice. But
Hmm.
um, of course, I was, young and probably didn't do it with the best intentions or love or but
Hmm.
um, now I've grown a lot, worked on that a lot, and other than like our writing coaching clients, which I do love, I do hope to be a business coach one day. Obviously, I want to make sure I have a good track record, a good business myself
Hmm.
before stepping into that role. But I do hope to always be just a good mentor for the Lord, like to bring people to the Lord, to
Hmm.
help them realize who He truly is and how they can truly have a relationship with Him too.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Love that. Love that. Well, kind of got some more fun questions for you. We got a lot of the
Awesome.
serious stuff out of the way. But kind of looking back at the past few years or maybe a whole life, depending on how good your memory is, can you think of any influential, maybe books or podcasts or other resources that have kind of helped walk you up to where you are today?
Yeah, all kinds of them. Um, I would say some of the biggest influential books were Nothing Wasted by Casey Van Norman. She was the Christian psychologist that kind of listed out those
Hmm.
symptoms of feeling unloved or unsafe and how you can figure out who you are and how you can navigate that in that sense. So that was really influential. Switch on Your Brain by Carolyn Leaf. That was really a really powerful one in realizing that science, how much God uses science, but how the brain works and how He just made the brain
Hmm.
to and really help us in a way, but how thoughts are so powerful, your own thoughts, and um, not only did that open up my mind to the thoughts, I think, just how that can really affect my relationship with the Lord and how I believe Him and how I see Him.
Hmm.
And it still opened up my eyes to the prophetic and how He can talk to us and how but she totally brings it back to science, which I love. She's just very like she's not super like woo 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 or whatever you want to call it. She'll always bring it back to science and scripture. She'll like quote literally a Bible verse and show you the science behind it. It's really powerful.
Love that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. So then, this might be a trick question, but are you more of a book person or a movie person?
Not a trick question. I do love both pretty good, but I'd still probably choose movies because
Really?
yeah, I love movies.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I won't tell your business partner.
Damn it.
So then if we were gonna make a movie about your life, what would you want it to be called?
Let's see. That's a great question. Because would it be fiction or would it be nonfiction? You know what I mean? Um,
Depends on how you write it.
right, right. Well, I would like to, I'm starting the process of writing a book of how you can make God your all in all that you do. And so I would assume if we're doing more of a documentary style, more like that, a title like that. Because I'd say that's probably one of my biggest missions is to help people really how to learn how to make God your all in all that you do because
Mm,
it took me a while to realize that. It took me a while to figure that out. And once I did, I feel like everything changed.
mm.
Everything.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes hand in hand with what Jesus talks about with abiding in John 15. If you're able to rest in Him, if you're able to really view Him as the end all be all, and as Lord and as Savior and as King,
Mm-hmm.
when you go about your day to day life, and that's on your mind, oh, God is my King, God is my Lord. I view Him higher than anything else in life. Then it really does shape every other decision and mindset that you might have throughout the remainder of the day, whether you're going grocery shopping or you're going to the movies. That it still shapes the way that you think and you walk through life. So that's
Yeah,
awesome. I love that concept.
100%.
I love that.
Thanks.
Well, kind of coming on the last few questions that I have for you, Autumn. But how would you encourage someone who is scared or intimidated to start doing what God wants them to do? I mean, running a business and everything like you're doing, that's kind of scary stuff. So, how would you encourage someone who's maybe thinking about doing something similar?
Yeah, I would say I totally understand.
And quit
Completely.
now.
Right? No, don't quit. Just think about quitting, but then don't actually do it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can dwell on it for a moment and then move on. No.
Mm,
I would say I get a lot there's a lot can be a lot of fear over it. Sometimes I would recommend going to the Lord with it, obviously. He can definitely take away your fear um from that. But
mm,
sometimes you just have to do it afraid, right? And
mm,
sometimes you just have to do it. So I would say take that step, really figure out why, right? Why are you doing this? And most likely, if you're a believer, especially, it's not about you, right?
mm,
It's not about you. You're doing it for the Lord, you're doing it for His glory. And so, really focusing on that and really focusing on who are you helping, right? How are you going to be able to change that person's life or multiple people's lives by coming out, by stepping out in faith and telling your story, sharing your story, or just showing up with your business, your service, your work really can apply in any area of
mm,
life. Um, but yeah, I would say just focus on the Lord and why you're doing it for Him. Yeah,
mm. It all makes sense in the end, in heaven.
it will. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Autumn. Well, I only have one last question then for you. Is there anything else you sense the Holy Spirit wants you to share on behalf of anybody who'd be listening to this episode?
Hmm. Thank you. Um, yeah, I would say I did forget to mention another book that was really impactful for me, and that was called Visioneering. And let me see who the author is. I might have to Andy Stanley. That's what it is.
Mm,
Because for so long, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to be one, And or if you're just in the self-help world, you're just trying to get better, you're trying to grow, become a better human being. The world tells you it's all about you. The world tells you, what is your vision? What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? Right? And then that can cause a lot of strain throughout life because you're just like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know where I want to go. Or, I don't know what I'm supposed to do for my whole life. And there's a reason for that because you're not supposed to know. The Lord is supposed to be the one guiding you, directing you. You're supposed to have this relationship with Him where you can go to Him for everything, right? And sometimes He might say, you choose, but just having that ability to go to Him and hear that, the ability to take, if He says go this direction, to be able to go that direction with faith and knowing you're going with Him, and don't take the charge and start going in your own strength again, but always coming back to, am I doing this with the Lord? Am I doing it for the Lord? Right? Checking yourself. But having that vision that is God's vision. And a lot of times He will put His desires on your heart for a reason, right? Those desires that you have because it's something that He wants you to do or wants you to have. But that can also mean sometimes you have to lay down some other things that maybe you wanted or thought that you would get, or even thought it would look a certain way. Even the vision you have that is the Lord's, you might think it looks a certain way and then it doesn't. But really just learning to trust the Lord in all of that and to, like I said, go to Him to make sure it's His vision you're moving forward with, not just your own vision. It's His dream, but a lot of times in His awesome mercy, our dreams are His dreams for us, for His life, for our life, And so, yes, just being able to go to the Lord, trust the Lord. I just encourage people to fight all the things, all the obstacles that are trying to come in between your relationship with the Lord, and just really go back to the Word, study the Word, go back to prayer. It doesn't have to be religious or spiritual or anything. You can just find what works for you. Pray as you go while you're walking, and set some time to just sit and pray and spend that quality focus time with Him, but also bring Him along with you wherever you're going, so it just doesn't have to be complicated. But yeah, that would be my biggest encouragement, biggest message is just go back to the Lord for everything.
I love it. Now that's an infinite truth right there. That's not going out of style.
Not going out of style, nope.
I love it. Well, Autumn, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. This has been an absolute pleasure getting to hear your story, everything that God's done, everything that He's woven into all the details. It's very encouraging to hear that there are other people out there that God is still using, even if we're making mistakes all along the way.
Yep.
And I love hearing stories. It's encouraging to my heart, and we need them like medicine. We constantly just need them.
Yes,
they're just
thank
so
you
encouraging.
too for having this podcast.
Well, thanks. It wasn't my idea. I can't take credit for it.
Right.
But I'll keep stewarding it as long as God gives it to me. So
That's
I have a
awesome.
very silly way that I like to end the podcast, and that
Okay.
is with a high five with my guest.
Cool.
So I would love if you could pick a number between 1 and 10. We'll count down from that number, and then we will high five the camera to make it look like we're high fiving each other.
Okay. Let's do 8.
8. All right. Now, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's Infinite Story. If it resonated with you, send it to someone you think would be blessed by it. If you would like to share your story, please reach out to us at infiniteideas.studio. You never know how far the impact of your story can reach. Take care now.